company he's founded and runs himself. Since 2001, he's been involved in this space. Is a real expert in, particularly in Zoom, and we're really interested to hear from Johnny today around his thoughts. So I'm just going to stop the sharing so that you can pick that up, Johnny, and I'll hand over to you.
Johnny, don't be rude about our Zoom presentation that you've just seen.
No, don't.
No critiquing.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Chris and Mark. It's awesome to be here with you this morning at the Sales Huddle. And as a potential vendor, I've been learning a bit, listening in there this morning. So considering what's going on. But what I was amazed to hear there, that, you know, somebody actually purchased a property without actually ever being here or being remote. And isn't that a sign of the times that, you know, the reliance on what we're doing now, Zoom calls, is really becoming really more, you know, important as time goes on. So presentology, I'm not sure if you've heard of one of those before. If I was to sum it up in one image, then this would be it. Really trying to create a deal or help people close a deal with an engaged audience. And that's really what we're all about. We are kind of the support team that help you do that kind of create more impact as we go through, and how we create slides. In terms of slides and looking at content, I mean, I loved what you guys presented this morning. Simple, straightforward, to the point, not too much junk on there, no charts and diagrams. But we'll look at some, maybe in the next half hour, some examples of good and bad examples, and certainly from your own industry. But just looking at some numbers from my industry, and this did start off as a list of bullet points, by the way. You know, there are a huge amount of presentations going on every day somewhere in the world. Microsoft report, you know, 30 million, but we think it's more up around the 50 million going on every day. That's 350 going on every second somewhere in the world. A huge amount of organizations do not have a strategy around presenting in terms of, you know, what's our format, how do we put it together? And, you know, there's a huge upside to doing it better. The better you do this, the more impact it can make. So really having a strategy and reviewing, I mean, when was the last time someone asked you to come into a meeting or a Zoom and give them some feedback on their slides? I mean, or how they're presenting. It just doesn't happen. So, you know, practicing and rehearsal is a big part of it and getting good at it. And if you look over on the right-hand side, some of the numbers on this slide refer to kind of creating an interaction and being more interactive. And Zoom has forced us down this road of kind of monologuing to audiences. And we tend to feel like we're just chatting into a black space where everybody's on mute and we've got no feedback. So how do we create more feedback and more engagement with people? Because if you think about it, interaction is a difference between a monologue and a dialogue. And really what we're doing with clients when we're selling to them is obviously dialoguing. So we need to do more of that. How can we do that? We need to disrupt and change the norm. What is the norm in presenting? Well, if I was to start off this morning by saying, well, today's agenda is that we're going to make better presentations, and then we're going to work on improving your speech and work on storytelling. That would be exactly what everybody else would do, wouldn't it? So why does this look like a PowerPoint slide? I mean, if you think about it, the visual hierarchy of this slide is that we've got a picture on the right-hand side that was obviously nicked from the internet. It's pretty poor. We've got a reflection underneath it. It's a standard treatment. We've got a title. We've got bullet points, and it's likely the presenter is going to read the presentation. Now, you know, you think that the world moves on and things get better, but I was lucky enough to go to a conference last week up in Auckland. And sure enough, the lady on before me very intelligent lady, read every single word on every single slide. And that is the kind of number one no-no that we ask people not to do. I mean, people can read at 300 words per minute. So you've probably all read all those bullet points now and are switching off and thinking of something else. So really, how do we present and create more impact? And also in terms of branding, it's okay to have your brand on a slide, but don't stick it in the bottom right-hand corner of every slide. It kind of sets a standard. And I know marketing, and we have to fit to marketing's brief, but we can play a little bit with it and try and improve so long as it's on brand. So if you want to be the same as everyone else, then just do this. If your slides look like this, then that's how you're going to drive it forward. The problem is that people won't necessarily tell you you're not good at this. You know, people are respectful of each other, so they don't necessarily. So it takes somebody like me to come in and say, these are the standards we need to hit, and this is how we need to move forward. One of my favorite quotations around slides is that we feel a sense of ownership of them, don't we? So we created them, they're our spawn, and we kind of, put our effort into them. So we feel like we own them. So really just understanding that, no one's going to admit to ugly children. So we've got to sometimes help you do that. And at conferences and events around the world, and different meetings, death by PowerPoint is absolutely prevalent wherever we go. And Zoom has created a whole set of new challenges. You may have heard of the poor Dunedin councillor who unfortunately had his stubbies on and decided to do a bit of dusting midway through his meeting. That caused a bit of a furore at the council meeting. Uni students nipping off to the bathroom and leaving their video camera turned on. So this can become a real challenge for people, the environment that we're in. So I wanted to unpackage what I'm doing right now and show you maybe some examples of how you can make it look better. Zoomed out appeared in the dictionary last year as an actual term. So people being zoomed out and having enough of it. And it isn't just specific to to Zoom. Worldwide, we see people suffering terribly. Here's a shot of I pinched off I took from a conference I was at in Dubai, and there was a guy at the back of the room fast asleep in front of 400 of his colleagues, and he probably had a hard nights, the night before. But this sort of conference boredom is everywhere. The lady in the back row here, I went to her and asked her, "Excuse me, you've come all the way from Texas to a conference. Why would you be knitting in a conference?" But so people are, considering doing something else. And when I asked her why, she said, "This is the sort of content." And here are some real slides from real customers that people gave us. I mean, what is right about this? Pretty much nothing. Yeah. Okay. Poor use of graphics, fonts, colors, charts, everything is wrong. And you might think that's extreme, but then look at some, kind of IT companies, they suffer from the same thing, the cliche of the pyramid. They asked me, what do you think people get from this? And I said, honestly, Smarties and M&Ms is my number one reaction to this slide. So too much information being presented is a real challenge. And let's dive down into some of your own industry slides. This is the before, this is what was given to us. And how do we make it look more impactful? Well, if it's a big number, then let's try and use a big number around it, So, and let's not be afraid to use a big number. And here's an icon on the slide, and we've created sort of a little bit of animation around it as well. Charts, tables. This is a good looking table, but it screams PowerPoint, doesn't it? And it's a standard one that you put in from PowerPoint. If you use the default, you're going to get the default reaction. So it's a case of, let's try and change it up a little bit, add some graphics and elements to it, and bring in some elements that actually create, an impact. So that's, again, looking at sort of bulleted lists. How do we make bulleted lists look more impactful? Well, again, let's use some imagery around it and create an icon array. Yeah. So this is an array of icons on the slide. They're all available in Office 365. It's just under Insert and Icons. And there's a whole library of icons right there. And you can bring them in and then add some text to them. So, trying to create more engagement through better content. Once again, if we're talking about, growth in an area, then we've got sort of a big image, and, the client here has really got the idea. They've got the idea of, kind of let's use some big text and use some more infographics. But if you give it to us, then what we would do is kind of, use a bigger image in the background and then bring in some of the content larger and better placed on the slide. And then, trying to create some more animation and more messaging through it. So that's around slides, and just in terms of what you can actually do and how you can work on improving that. And we have a whole days of course that actually runs through that and takes people through that. Now, in terms of presenting virtually, I just wanted to unpackage what I'm doing right now. I'm stood in front of my son's duvet that I nicked off his bed a year ago. And that's frankly what my green screen is. And I'm using the green screen because it creates a sharper outline to me. And I just noticed in the past couple of months, there's actually now a green screen you can get that slides over the back of your office chair. So it's like one of those pop-up tent things that pops up and you kind of slide it over your office chair. Now, why do we want a green screen? Well, a green screen behind this means that I can remove and I can replace information that's on the screen, and I can change what's behind me. I'm going to show you a few examples of that in a moment. But it's most important to get connected really well as far as data is concerned. So try not to rely on 4G or your phone or your laptop on Wi-Fi. The best connection you can get is a wired connection at your home office if you're really connecting with people, because you'll get, the kids coming home and jumping on TikTok or YouTube and, sucking all your Wi-Fi. So it's a case of make sure you get connected by cable, and then you're not necessarily causing a problem. If you don't have a cable connection on your laptop, you can just nip down to Noel Leeming and get yourself a little dongle adapter, USB to network adapter. It's really important, in terms of all of the media that we use, visual, but auditory is really important. So having a good quality microphone is really important. This is a $50 Yeti Blue microphone, a Blue Yeti it's called. And, having a good quality microphone or headset is really important when you're communicating with people. If everything fails, your last communication method is going to be audio. So make sure you end up with it, and watch out for background noise, road noise, etc. Try to filter that stuff out, get into a quiet environment. Lighting, if you're going to use a green screen, you need a big, simple light pointing at you. So get a big, good quality light. You could use a builder's light, but try to watch out for harsh shadows. And, in terms of the camera, try to have a high quality camera. So you're looking for a high definition camera. The camera that's in your laptop is really not high definition. It's a low quality camera, generally on older laptops. So watch out for that. Try to get a higher quality camera. I'm using a Logitech HD camera here today. The most important thing about the camera is getting it up on eye level. And we'll come on and talk about that in terms of connecting with people and looking them in the eye. One of the main challenges we see, you see it on TVNZ, you see it all around the world in the BBC, people looking down somewhere else, looking away from the screen. It's really important to look directly at the camera when you're talking to people. So get the camera up at eye level. No one wants to look up your nose. So please get it on eye level, get connected with us. If you don't have a green screen and you need a background of some sort, you can see Mark there is sitting in front of a very nice poster, and different people have played with this, but you can have quality branding behind you. And if you want to bring a bit of humanity into it, then a plant is always a nice addition, or some sort of certificate behind you. So let's have a look at what we can do with a virtual background. And to do that, I've got to stop and just stop sharing for a moment and show you my own image and have a play with some of the virtual backgrounds that I've got. Now, these are all available in Zoom. You can load them in. So, was I wanted to talk to you about the 6 different areas that we cover, I could talk to that. If I'm presenting to a client, then I would change my background to be my client's brand. So when I'm presenting and taking them through, I would actually work on that. But I can also talk about where I am, and I can maybe, bring in some video. This is just in Zoom. You can add in a video, and I could talk about what we're up to at the moment. And this is the sort of stuff we get up to in Queenstown and in the lakes, Southern Lakes. And, this is a sort of lifestyle. So if people ask me what I'm doing, and if I'm talking about my kids, I would introduce them to you and maybe say, we had a great life in Dubai for 20 years. And here's an example of my kids, playing around in the pool. So don't be afraid to bring some humanity into it as well. In terms of actually showing off presentations, be they in different lines of business, these are examples of slides that have been kind of converted over to video, and you can skip through the different demonstrations that you may have, and you can show, some of the work. So you can actually have that playing behind you. So you're not trying necessarily to be Dan Corbett here, but the idea is to actually bring it in and, use a virtual background to really, tell messages and get people connected with what you do and to step through it. And if you think about it, I'm no longer a small little postage stamp. Now I'm full screen, and I'm kind of able to work with my content and be able to move around. Now, one of the most important things you may notice is that I am moving around, and we'll talk about that as we come through, because most of you are sitting down and relaxed, but I'm actually not. I'm up and standing. And one of the most important things to allow me to do that is obviously a stand-up desk. So having a stand-up desk And, you know, being able to get up and get on eye level is really quite important, because I can then use a little bit of stagecraft. So I can make myself a little bit smaller by stepping back here, or I can come in closer and kind of, you know, use the space to move around in a little bit more. So if you're standing up, it also changes your physiology in terms of presenting, in terms of how you're getting your message across. So don't be afraid to have a play with doing that at any point, and you know, when you're putting it together. So you simply just, to sum that up, you simply go into PowerPoint, into, you know, you could use PowerPoint, you could use any tool to save out a picture, and you bring those into Zoom as virtual backgrounds. There's a little plus button there, and you can add videos and you can add pictures that go behind you. They work really well with a green screen. Also, consider your clothing. I've deliberately worn a pattern today. You'll notice that there's a little bit of what we call moire on it, which is where it starts moving around. That can be distracting, you know, in terms of getting your message across. So, you know, try to not go for the big logos. I mean, the logos on the logos here. So try to keep yourself, if you do have logos, they're branded, and try and color yourself to the brand. It's not necessarily, it's a subtle thing, but it's an easy way to get your message across in terms of how you look and how you come across. So watch out for some of those. In terms of using your hands, well, you know, we've got a whole range of different presentation ability when we bring our hands into it. And your hands can feel weird, you know, in terms of what you do with them, but you can give information with it. You can emphasize things. You could, if somebody asked you a question, you could turn into the professor or the thinker, and you could think about that as you use it. And remember, we've only got a short window to do that in, but watch out for the worrier, you know, people doing strange things with their hands. You might have seen some lecturers. I had one lecturer who did this quite a lot, spent a lot of time wandering around the class like this. We called this the lonely lover, where he's hugging himself. Yeah. So watch out for hand movements in terms of creating impact. And obviously, when you get in person with people, you can bring that out much more in terms of getting your message across. Now, the core communication here, and we say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And it is very, very hard for me to focus on the fact that all your eyes are on the other side of that camera. So I need to look, and I'm ignoring everything that's in front of me here. And I'm sure technology-wise, someone around the world is inventing a screen with a camera built into it, because people generally look at the screen. So if I change and look at the screen and look down at Mark and focus in on Mark, and I'm talking to him now, I've totally broken my connection with you. So it's really important as a group that I look through the camera. So you consider the camera, to the people to be on the other side of the camera and connect with it. One common problem is that people are using Zoom full screen. So if you're using full screen, people are over here. You can actually window Zoom and put it under your camera. Work out where your camera is and put the Zoom window under your camera, really small. And then you can also see the people as well. So that's something we try to recommend in terms of putting it together. If you had a video to do, or if you were creating a presentation of some sort, you can actually build your own teleprompter, or if you've got an iPhone or a smartphone, there's an app called Teleprompter, and it actually puts your script on the screen in front of you so you can read it, and then you can record yourself. So it's a kind of build your own teleprompter solution. So then lastly, really focusing in on the voice. So, you know, there are 5 characteristics to the ideal voice. I'm constantly working on mine. I tend to find the Kiwi accent to be a little bit thin and a little bit at the front of the mouth. But, you know, my Northern Irish accent, if I speak in my normal Belfast accent, that's what we sound like. And it's really, really hard. And people don't know what we're talking about. And we tend to talk too quickly. You know, people aren't sure if we're Scottish or Irish. So really, when I went to the Middle East and I was there for 20 years, I had to learn to slow down, and I'm suffering a little bit of speed up this morning as well, because I've got a lot to talk to you about. But, you know, slowing down and really bringing the tone of your voice down. We vote for politicians with lower voices, if you look at Winnie, for example. So, you know, it's all about, and I'm not promoting smoking by any means, but certainly, you know, sort of having a lower voice can create more impact. We want our voices to be like warm chocolate, to fit around our audience and to connect with them. But using pitch is another classic example. I mean, you know, where did you leave the keys? Where did you leave the keys? We don't tend to do that when we present. We tend to use quite a flat voice, and we end up with what's called, a monotonic voice or monotonous voice. If I ask a kid to come up and present, they will talk like this because they think that that is the way to present to people. So getting some prosody into your voice, the sing-song nature of your voice, is really quite an important thing to do. And then volume, we tend to find people really, tend to talk just like they were talking to their mate, really. And, presentation with no projection, no voice projection, is quite a tough thing to listen to, because it's kind of gets small and gets a bit boring, you know what I mean? And it's just a conversation. Whereas if I start to project my voice, and I'm projecting my voice in the room that I'm in, but I'm also projecting into your ears, now I'm starting to turn into more of a presenter, and I'm starting to push and project my voice out a little bit. So on pace generally as well, Irish people, we would have a problem of, way too quickly. I'm watching a program at the moment about the Irish police, and it takes me a whole sentence to work out what they're saying because it's way too quick. So try to slow your voice down to around 150 words per minute is ideally what you want. Now, there is a tool that will allow you to do this, and if you've got Office 365, it's staring right at you. If you go up to the slideshow setup, you can actually rehearse with a coach. And it just launched a couple of weeks ago. So it's built right into PowerPoint if you've got Office 365. So it's called Presenter Coach, and you can rehearse and practice your presentation, and you will get feedback on your pace, energy levels, and it will give you metrics around that. So it's right there in Office. Now, if you don't have Office 365, there are a couple of apps that do this for you. One is called Orai, O-R-A-I. Have a look for that. And that's an app that allows you to record, listens to your voice, and gives you feedback on your energy. But vocally, try to work on your voice and work on how you get your message across. You work with a voice coach if you need to, but really, vocal range is really important as we move forward. So in summary, get yourself set up well. Try to speak at 80% of where you'd normally speak. If you normally speak at 50%, we don't want you shouting either. Try to add charisma into your presentation. I mean, certainly, those people who are more charismatic than others and close sales more. Why? Because possibly they're more charismatic. Is there a formula for charisma? We are working on one, so it's a constant effort, but certainly involves vulnerability, authenticity, words like that, being genuine, so getting your message across. You won't really connect with your audience unless you look directly into the camera. And try to remember that if you've got bad teeth, get them fixed, because we want to see them. Yeah, so we want a smile from you, we want you to be engaged, and we want you to have fun. So summarizing, don't be afraid to disrupt and change the norm. I know, kind of a lot of people tend to, kind of stick to the norm, and try to get away from this concept of I'm going to have text on my slides, I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to hopefully, get the audience engaged. We believe that if you work on the content, if you work on how you deliver it, and if you work on interacting with the audience, and that's something for another day, creating interaction. We could have done, if we had time today, we could have done breakout rooms, we could have tried some polling, but there are lots of ways to create engagement. You could ask a question, so I'm creating engagement as you move through. So in my last 16 seconds, I'd like to say, you don't really get a newspaper, you get news. You don't really get glasses, if you think about it, you get vision. You don't really get a mattress, you get sleep. And you don't really get a lamp, you get light. Well, if you use presentology, you're not really getting a presentation, you're getting applause. Thank you very much.
That's
so
awesome.
those
Thanks
are,
so
thank
much,
you guys.
Johnny.
Yeah, those are the 6 areas that we cover. And we'd love to do some more work with you guys. And we can do it virtually or in person, but we really cover everything across the range of presenting, from virtual presenting, which kind of brings all the skills together, but working on what your story is and how you're getting a message across. Certainly slides is a big subject that people want to be better at and improve. And we also produce and help that and put those stuff together, but also working on audience engagement, not forgetting the audience and not forgetting about, how and actually practicing it and putting it together. So if you'd like to find out more, I've got a whole load of free stuff for you. It's all available at this little website, aalive.mobi. You can scan that QR code now. If you click on the flashing cursor and fill in that form, we'll keep you updated on what's going on. But I've got all of today's slides in there, some really cool presentation books, saying it with charts, presentation secrets of Steve Jobs, templates, different assets that you may want. It's like our free area to grab bag, goodie bag. So please feel free to grab it from there. And thank you very much for your listening in today. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Johnny.
Any questions?
Anybody got any questions? Clearly not.